This is the Supernova Building Guide, and today we're going to build our own weaponsmith. In almost every session of Dungeons & Dragons, my players want to visit one particular place, their weaponsmith, to check out if they can find new armor or buy new weapons, or to find some magical items from the black market. So join me today as we are build our own blacksmith.
So for the blacksmith, I want an L-shaped building, something like this. Here will be a door to the shop. Here I want my furnace. And this area will be the place where the blacksmith is keeping all his stuff and hammers and anvils and things like that. To make life a little bit easier, I wanted to use this texture roller, but texture rollers don't work as good on foam. Of course you can use some caulk or clay, but it also needs some drying time and I really want to build something. So I've been experimenting around and I really found some cool tricks. Behold! 4 pieces of foam. But this one still has the normal skin, it came from the factory. This one is cut with my hot wire cutter, this one is cut with my knife, and I sanded this one with 180 grit sandpaper. Now check this out. Here we have our results, and you can immediately see that the original top layer is protecting the foam and that the texture roller isn't going to do his job very well. But when you take off this top layer, I did this with hot wire, it works very good actually, and you can immediately see the difference. And also notice the difference in skin texture. This one is way rougher, and the one with the hot wire is very smooth. But when you don't have a hot wire foam cutter, you can also use a normal hobby knife. Just take off the top layer and you will get a similar effect. But this also shows you the problem I have with making deep cuts into foam. Sometimes when your blade isn't sharp enough, you get this tearing effect. So I was thinking, well, maybe I should use some sandpaper. So I used 180 grit sandpaper here, and sanding it will give you the same great texture as the hot wire cutter. There is a slight difference in skin texture. This is a bit textured and this is very smooth, but I cannot find any other difference between these two. So these are the techniques I am going for. I'm going to do most of the things with my hot wire cutter, but when a piece of foam is too large for it, I'm going to use the sandpaper technique. All the foam is cut and I already marked the first floor because I want to make the first floor from some bricks and the second floor will be made out of plaster and wooden beams. So the next step is to give the first floor the stone texture and then I'm going to assemble the building.
Right now I'm already going to add some details because we don't have a roof yet, and now it's way easier to get all the windows done and also the electronics for the LEDs. And if you want to use these things yourself, all the STL files I use are in the video description.
These two windows have some LEDs behind them, and to diffuse the light I'm going to use some baking paper glued behind the window, so you cannot see the LEDs and it gives a more natural lighting. And when that's all in place, I am going to prepare the furnace. I'm going to drill a hole in the furnace for all the wiring, glue it in place, and when that's all done we can start on the electronics. All the electronics work, and right now we can start on the roof. And for the roof I'm going to follow the same process as the walls. I'm going to make some thin sheets of foam, and then I have this texture roller and I'm going to try it out. But because the sheets of foam are very thin, because it's a roof, I need some supports here, and that's what I'm going to do right now. Next up, I'm going to make these wooden support beams, and I'm going to use these thin strips of foam. And to get the wood texture on the foam, I'm going to use this metal brush. The process is very simple. You just take your brush and brush over your foam a few times. And the more times you do it, the more aged effect you're going to get. And I prefer to use a brush with a soft metal like this, a brass brush. I wouldn't suggest using something like steel because it will tear open your foam.
My friends, I hope you like this video so far, and if you do, please like and subscribe, because I have a lot more cool projects coming I want to show you. Thanks.
The black base coat is dry. Now we can move over to the next part, the dry brushing. And to do that, I'm going to use my Super Pro Makeup Brush 3000 Limited Rainbow Edition. Now, just kidding, this was the cheapest makeup brush I could find. So I'm going to dry brush, and first I'm going to start with a dark gray and then move to lighter colors of gray from there. This phase of the roofs is done. Now we can move over to the next part, the walls and the wooden beams. First I'm going to cover the walls and the wood with a chocolate brown base coat, and then I come back with different kinds of light brown to paint the walls. Everything is painted, and now we have a bright collection of different kind of colors. So I'm going to use a dark brown wash to blend all the colors together. Then I'm going to leave it for a few hours, and then I will come back with a light dry brush. I just painted this part white because I'm going to use my favorite contrast paint, Skeleton Horde. And this color is amazing when you do something with bone or fur, but also if you want to make some leather or cloth or even B-1 battle droids from Star Wars, this is the stuff you need. But the white paint needs to dry first, so I'm going to start on all the metal bits from the furnace. The next step is to hide this LED inside the furnace, and we're going to do that with some baking paper and a hot glue gun. So first I'm going to try to replicate a flame effect, cut it into the right size and glue it inside the furnace. Instead of just painting a model and call it a blacksmith, I thought it would be a cool idea to make a backstory for this character. Let me know in the comments what you think. Here we go. In the streets of Waterdeep, where merchants, soldiers and adventurers bustle day and night, there stands a forge renowned for crafting the finest weapons in the city. Behind the anvil stands Brogar Stonehand, a dwarf who has honed his craft in a way unlike most weapon makers. His hands, hardened by years of battle, now shape steel with the same precision and strength with which he once wielded an axe in the bloody wars that still marks his past. Brogar was no ordinary dwarf. He had fought in the War of the Underdark, a conflict that had plagued his people for generations, and alongside his comrades he battled against the underground threats of Durgar, Drow and even darker creatures. And for years he lived from fight to fight, his senses sharpened by danger and his axe always ready. The war had shaped him into what he was, a warrior without mercy, without fear, but also without peace. The decision to become a weaponsmith didn't come immediately, but was born out of both necessity and a desire. Brogar had wielded countless weapons in the war, axes, swords, hammers, and he knew exactly how a weapon should feel in the hand of a warrior. He understood balance, strength, and a subtlety that made a great weapon stand out from a mere piece of steel. But more importantly, he wanted to ensure that other warriors were better prepared than he had ever been. A well-forged weapon could mean a difference between life and death, and Brogar knew that difference all too well. Waterdeep offered the perfect opportunity for his new path. The city was a melting pot of races and adventurers, always seeking for the best gear for their new journeys. And Brogar found a small workshop on the edge of the city and began his new life there. The sound of his hammer on the anvil replaced the war drums in his mind, and the glow of the forge pushed away the memories of the burning battlefields. The weapons Brogar forged quickly became famous. Swords that were perfectly balanced, axes that could cleave through the hardest stone, and spears that stayed razor sharp even after many battles. But it wasn't just the quality that made his weapon so wanted. Each weapon he crafted carried a piece of his soul, a piece of his experience as a warrior, and for him it was as if he was forging a part of himself into the steel. He didn't speak much, but the warriors and the adventurers who visited his forge could see that the dwarf knew more about battle than they could ever imagine. This smithy in Waterdeep was a fresh start for Brogar Stonehand. He had left the war behind, but the fire of his craft still burned bright. With every strike of his hammer he felt his past, but also his future. And he knew he had finally found a home, not in battle, but in the forge. And as the evening settled over the city, Brogar knew he was exactly where he was meant to be.
My friends, thank you for watching. And in retrospection, I think the texture roller gives you a pretty okay result if you consider the time investment. But if you want to learn some other techniques, I suggest you watch this video where I build a cemetery where I pre-make long strips of brick wall, or maybe this video where I use more than 2000 foam bricks to build a sewer diorama. See you next time.